afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cairo Local Time, a show with a comprehensive review on different worlds and different segments. Today's show will include, obviously, the news items, as well as a cultural magazine and a military magazine, in addition to a phone interview and a in-studio interview. Today's episode, we're going to be reviewing some local news, and then after that, look at the military and tourism magazine. We're also going to have over the phone Dr. Ahmed Hilal, a professor of political science and the Chinese University in China. And in the studio, we're going to be interviewing our guest today, Ambassador Wafat Basim, former Assistant Foreign Minister, who's going to tell us a bit more about it. Let's take a short break and then get back to it again. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the local news bulletin segment. The first item that we have is President Sisi taking part in the 28th African Union Summit. The item itself reads, President Abdel Fattah Sisi arrived in Addis Ababa to take part in the 28th African Union Summit held during the current week. On the sidelines of the summit, the president met with his counterparts from the Republic of Congo as they discussed methods of bolstering relations with the African nations in various fields as well as regional issues. Let's take a look at a report about the African Summit.
President Abdel Fattah Sisi meets on Monday with Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn on the sidelines of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. President Sisi participates in the AU's 28th General Assembly themed Harnessing the Demographic Dividend through Investments in Youth, which kicked off in Addis Ababa on the 22nd of January and will conclude on the 31st of January. Earlier, the president told attendees of a youth conference in Aswan that although Egyptians' concerns about the under-construction Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam are legitimate, Egypt was dealing with the issue in a good way and in accordance with the agreements reached between Cairo and Addis Ababa. He will also present a final report on the efforts conducted by Egypt during its two-year chairman of an African Leader Council on Climate Change, where he will then hand over that chairmanship to Gabon counterpart Ali Bongo Ondimba. President Sisi will meet in Addis Ababa with his counterparts from Kenya and the Republic of Congo to discuss methods of bolstering relations with the African countries in various fields, as well as other issues. In statements to Egyptian journalists in Addis Ababa on Sunday, Egypt's envoy to Ethiopia and the EU, Abu Bakr Hanafi, said that both countries were able to overcome the transit conflict. Hanafi added that the trust built between the two countries since El-Sisi came into office helped to overcome this crisis through high-level calls between the two countries away from the media. He predicted that Egyptian-Ethiopian relations will witness a major push in the upcoming period, especially with Egypt, Ethiopia, Senegal being non-permanent members representing the African continent on the UN Security Council. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri is also participating in the summit. He met his Malian counterpart on the sidelines of the participating in the 28th African Union Summit. Both foreign ministers discussed the mutual ties between Egypt and Mali in addition to the files raised on the African Union Summit agenda. Shukri assured that Egypt supports Mali in fighting terrorism.
Welcome back. The next item reads, Chief expresses concern over U.S. Trump's Muslim ban decision. The news item itself reads, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghait, expressed his deep concern over the recent order given by U.S. President Donald Trump, which drastically limits Muslim immigration to the United States, saying that such an unjustified decision imposes tough controls on travelers from 7 Muslim countries, including war-wracked Syria. Abu Ghait stated that the halt of the refugee arrivals will have serious consequences. The Arab League chief added that he hopes that Trump would retract his decision due to the negative impact of it. Official spokesman of the Arab League, Mahmoud Afifi, said that the league's chief is aware that these restrictions contradict the positive developments, openness and connectivity which have been witnessed by the world throughout the past decades. The next item is Alexandria reopens main port following 2-day closure due to bad weather. It actually reads, Alexandrian officials reopened the city's main port following 2 days of closure due to bad weather. The Port Authority spokesman said that the port's main section was open for operations in the early hours of Sunday after the weather improved. Earlier, the port was closed as a precautionary measure to prevent ships from colliding with each other or with the port's docks. Egypt has been experiencing a wave of cold weather weeks with moderate rain in some parts of the nation and visible fog in the early mornings. Next, we have Egypt's Pharaohs defeat Atlas Lions of Morocco on Sunday, leading the national team to reach the semi-final of the African Football Championship. The Egyptian team will play against Burkina Faso next Wednesday in the semi-finals. Let's take a look at a report about the victory of the Egyptian national team.
The Egyptian national football team won the Moroccan team 1-0 on Sunday to reach the CAF semi-finals by that victory. Earlier, the Confederation of African Football CAF had announced that the match between Egypt and Morocco in the Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals would be held in Port Gentil Stadium on Sunday. The Pharaohs have qualified for the quarterfinals in this year's competition after defeating Ghana and Uganda and drawing Mali to finish at the top of Group D with 7 points, 2 goals and a clean sheet. The Atlas Lions had secured their quarterfinals spot after beating Togo on the Ivory Coast and losing to Congo. Morocco finished second in Group C, scoring 4 goals and conceding 2 goals. The 2017 Africa Cup of Nations, known as the Total Africa Cup of Nations Gabon 2017, is the 31st edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, the biennial international men's Championship of Africa organized by the Confederation of African Football. The 2017 African Championship will qualify for the 2017 FIFA Confederations Cup in Russia. This event is also part of Africa Cup of Nations' 60th anniversary. The Pharaohs have won the competition a record 7 times, including 3 in a row between 2006 and 2010. They have also been semi-finalists 14 times, but are very much sad looking to rediscover their old magic.
Welcome back. We're joined right now on the line by Mr. Mohammed Musbah, a sports analyst who's going to shed more light on the Egyptian team's victory and what he expects for the semi-final. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Actually, we need to say first congratulations to our team and to our head coach after the results yesterday. We are very optimistic that we can reach the best of the team, maybe staying from the card. So The challenge now we are facing is making our individuals ready and our players ready, and at the same time they're fit, because we have only 2 days to the match. So this is actually challenge we are facing. I'm expecting a very good Raiders against Burkina Faso, because simply if we look to the details of the competitive of the player against us, I think we can win the match. Most important for us that we make the balance between making and at the same time making them fit for the match, because it's only 2 days. Ghana and Cameroon, we have a big, I can say, chance, because they have a longer. You will play and win day. We are very optimistic that our team can make Raiders at this time and can win the cup, but we need to take it step by step. Now we are part of the 4 best teams actually in the competition, so we are very close to achieve it, but we need to be very focused. It's only 2 matches to win the cup team, and we need to be ready for that. If I have a message to the head coach, I just need to blame them that the players need to be ready, because it's only almost 2 days between the 2 matches, and we need to be ready at this match to the final. It's not time, it's a journey, and we need to be for the journey. Yeah.
Do you think that the performance of the national team yesterday was up to par, especially that the national team was missing very big key players within the team itself, and we saw young faces coming in yesterday and playing?
To be honest, I'm very optimistic even as this situation, simply because we have a good replacement. Yesterday, as Mr. Alex Ferguson, he made a report before about how to win in the football. You're saying if you have one phase, you can win the match. This is the strategy we need to use to win the match. Yes. Only 8 players can make it happen. This is not like that. It's Mr. Alex Ferguson or Sergi, as they like they call him. So if we have 8 players fit after 7 minutes, I can win it. And at the same time, we still have a replacement. Most important to keep Sad Samir, Ahmed Hagazi, and Ali Gabr ready for that, because defender now playing very important role in such type of semi-final and final matches.
Do you think that Burkina Faso will be a tough opponent for us, or should this be a relatively easy match for the Egyptian team?
In semi-final, there is no easy match, to be very honest. But while we are evaluating the match, we are evaluating the options we have. If we're talking about Burkina Faso, for sure we are in a better position in facing Ghana, for example, or Cameroon or Senegal. After doing the match with the Tunisia last time, I think our role, we need to control the match, because you're playing fast and it shouldn't take us to this point. We need to have a mature leader in the match, because the way they're playing, they're very close to play. So it is not easy, but at the same time, if we have a match inside the match itself, inside the field itself, I think we can make a good impact.
Okay, Mr. Mohamed Mosbah, sports analyst, thank you so much for shedding some light on the Egyptian national team's victory and their performance last night. We move on to the next segment of the show, entitled The Military Magazine, to shed more details on the latest developments which occurred in the field. We present the Military Magazine, reviewing the achievements and the latest projects. The details follow on the military achievements with Yasmin Al-Fas.
هيجيب الجول مين قالك انه مش معقول هتشوف هنخلي الدنيا تشوف شعب ادى الخوف بالشلوت شوف احساسك هيجيب الجول مين قالك انه مش معقول هتشوف هنخلي الدنيا تشوف شعب ادى الخوف بالشلوت يا بلدي يا بلدي يا بلدي يا مصر حنفوز باللعبة الحلوة وبالروح لو حتى خسرنا زعلنا يروح. مين قال إن المصريين بيشجعوا بس عشان الفوز؟ حنفوز باللعبة الحلوة وبالروح لو حتى خسرنا زعلنا يروح. صوت تشجيعنا مش هيموت، هيرج الملعب لما تعوز. بلدي يا بلدي يا بلدي يا مصر مصر يا
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi presided over a security meeting of the National Defense Council to review the latest security developments and discuss ongoing operations in northern Sinai. The meeting was attended by Prime Minister Sharif Ismail and Ministers of Defense, Interior, Foreign Affairs and Finance, alongside the Armed Forces Chief of Staff and the Chief of the Egyptian General Intelligence. The meeting discussed counter-terrorism efforts in Sinai, as well as increased security measures undertaken to protect the country's borders. The Council agreed to prolong the period of the Egyptian armed mission in the Gulf, Red Sea, and Bab el-Mandab areas. Defense Minister Sabri Sobhi met on Thursday with Chief of Staff of the French Army Pierre Fay and his accompanying delegation. During the meeting, they discussed the latest developments in the region, current regional and international issues of mutual concern, in addition to ways of boosting bilateral cooperation between both countries. Minister of Defense and Military Production Siri Sobhi met with the commander of the UN Organization Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, MONUSCO, and his accompanying delegation. During the meeting, they discussed issues of mutual concern and the role of the mission in the Black Continent. The defense minister praised the efforts exerted by the peacekeeping forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, pointing to the importance of their role in preserving security and stability of the brotherly country, which plays an important role as one of the most important countries in the African continent. For his part, the commander of the MONUSCO praised the continuous support provided by Egypt's peacekeepers, the importance of the role played by the Egyptian forces participating in the peacekeeping operation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
من تراب مصر بازغ ندمه، وفي دروبها اشتد عوده واستنار فكره، وفي ناصع صفحات جيش مصر العريق سجل بأحرف من نور اسمه. إنه المشير محمد عبد الحليم أبو غزالة، أحد رواد العسكرية في العصر الحديث. ولد المشير محمد عبد الحليم أبو غزالة في الأول من يناير عام 1930 بقرية زهور الأمراء، مركز الدلنجات، محافظة البحيرة.
we're joined over the phone right now by Dr. Ahmed Hilal, a professor of political science at the Chinese University for Science and Technology in China. Good afternoon to you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon.
Firstly, could you tell us what it's like to teach at a Chinese university?
Yeah. Excuse me, can you say the question again, please?
What's it like to teach at a Chinese university in China? I mean, it must be very different in terms of culture and ways of teaching.
Yeah. In fact, I have two PhD. I have one from Cairo University in history, and I lived before in China 4 years ago. I have my PhD, another PhD from China in political science. So after I finished my PhD, I already have job in China in this university.
Was it difficult to teach China? I mean, it must be a different experience than, for instance, teaching here in Egypt.
Yeah, in fact, China, it's like a special case in education because they have more population. China exactly now combats 1 billion and half people, but they have very good system in education. Each class divided to more classes. I mean, in one class, not more than 20 or 30 students.
Yes.
Each teacher, it's in fact it's a very good system, like the school in Egypt. This is inside the university because the university care for a student much. Each student should pay more than 100,000 kwai.
Yes.
To enter the university, and not most of Chinese people can afford this. For this, here the university, it is like market exactly.
Yes.
Each student he can choose his university because he pay for this, and in the same moment he can choose also his school.
Sir, as a professor of political science, how do you see the Egyptian-Chinese relations? And are they better in the last 2 years or so?
In fact, Rais Sisi visited China too, and this affects much in the relation between the two countries. China care much for Egypt because the Egyptian government, it was the first country established relation with China in 1956.
Yes.
And also Egypt has a very, very important position in political map in all the world. And now after the new administration in the United States, I expect the relation between China and Egypt change much exactly after the new policy which China try to do it after Trump administration.
Okay, Dr. Ahmed Hilal, a professor of political science at the Chinese University for Science and Technology in China. Thank you so much for joining us on the line and shedding more light on Egyptian-Chinese relations. We move on to the tourism magazine with the latest events and developments in the tourism field, reviewing the latest tourism news. For more details on the tourism magazine, Nile TV's Abin Mutwalli filed this report.
Prince Shamil, the grandson of late King Farouk of Egypt, along with the top Russian diplomatic delegation, paid a visit to Muhammad Ali Palace in Cairo's El Maniel, while the son of Belarus President Lukashenko visited the Giza Plateau. Walauddin Badawi, director of the Muhammad Ali Palace, said the Prince Shamil, the son of King Farouk's daughter Princess Fadia, came to Egypt along with the Russian delegation, including top officials and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Earlier, Latvia's ambassador to Egypt and the spouse of its former president also visited the palace. Badawi said that the visitors were keen to take photos in different sections of the palace and promised to pay another visit to Egypt soon. Ashraf Mohi, director of the Giza Plateau, said that Lukashenko visited the Giza pyramids and took photos in front of the Sphinx. Lukashenko, who Mohi says is fond of ancient civilization, paid another visit to Plateau on the second day of his visit to explore the Great Pyramids of Khufu. On the northern side of Jabal al-Silsila in Aswan, the Egyptian-Swedish archaeological mission from Lund University has stumbled upon another group of rock-hewn tombs from the reign of New Kingdom pharaohs Amenemhotep II and Thutmose III. Announced by Mahmoud Afifi, head of the Ancient Egyptian Antiquities Department at the Ministry of Antiquities, the Swedish mission, led by Maria Nilsson and John Ward in 2015, discovered a series of rock-hewn tombs located in the north of Jabal al-Silsila's east bank, in the area immediately to the north of the famous Stele of King Amenemhotep V and stretching westwards to the Nile. Nilsson said that while the tomb had been also described by previous visitors to the site, no comprehensive survey nor any proper archaeological work had been conducted until 2015, adding that during the initial survey, 43 tombs were identified and 5 were chosen to be cleared of sand and damaging layer of salt in order to study their state of conservation. Returning to the site 8 months later, Nilsson continued, the work proved successful as both external and interior walls, to some extent also the ceiling, stabilized by exposing them to the sun, drawing out prior dampness. In the initial clearing process, the team was successful in identifying various archaeological markers, including 2 marked chambers, external courtyards, and dressed portcullis, slot cuts into the door jambs by the entry to the tomb. During this session, Nilsson said, the team discovered another 12 rock-cut tombs as well as 3 cut into the rock. 2 niches possibly used for offering one tomb containing multiple animal burials. The majority of the tomb excavated so far, with the main exception of 2 infant burials, had been plundered in antiquity and left neglected without further disturbance.
welcome back. We are joined in the studio with our in-studio guest today, Ambassador Wafat Bassam, former Assistant Foreign Minister. And we're going to be talking today about the U.S. administration's decision by the new President, Donald Trump, and in limiting the Muslim immigration, or the Muslim, 7 nations rather, to the United States, and the consequences of that, and how would it impact nations that are war-racked like Syria. I apologize, it's Wafat Bassam, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Could you tell us a bit about the decision itself? Obviously, it has caused quite a ruckus in the States. There's protests right now there because of it.
That's first. Internally, of course, it has rocketed many major cities in the U.S.
Yes.
We have manifestations in San Francisco, Boston, Washington, Seattle, and more are to come. There are also negative reactions from Americans themselves.
Yes.
We have seen the statement of Madame Albright.
Yes.
We have former State Secretary. We have seen the statement also of the New York City Congressman, Senator, who expressed today his concern about this decision as well. Nevertheless, I think despite it has rocketed very much everywhere internally and on the international level, Mr. Trump, the President of the U.S., who is now in office, has said this before in his campaigns. It even started in 2015. And people thought that it was only for the campaign to gain votes, to play on the nationalism of the Americans, to somehow amplify the threat that foreigners, immigrants, Arabs, Muslims do represent to the American security.
But isn't denying a refugees' entry into a country considered a violation of the Geneva Convention?
It is, of course, a violation of the Geneva Convention in 1951. It is a violation for the human rights, the different human rights in and we have seen that today the United Nations have qualified this decision as illegal because it is in contradiction with the principles of international law, humanitarian laws, and all human rights instruments. On the other hand, the United Nations Migration Agency or Refugee Agency, as well as the IMO, is the International Migration Organization, have expressed deep alarm and deep concern at this and its impact on the flow of refugees, especially coming from these countries that are in a turmoil and where we have 5 million Syrians that have fled the country. And one of the countries which was a recipient country was the United States of America, and there was on the national level a program for rehabilitation and let's say having these refugees at least settled in the country in a legal way and then sort of integrated in the American and Western society. The reactions haven't come only from the manifestations inside the USA and the comments that expressed a lot of anger or concern, at least discontent with this American ban, this presidential ban, but it came, and international organizations, but it came as well from the EU, where many of the foreign ministers and the leaders of EU countries like Germany, like France, and others have expressed their the threat that this new ban, this process would pose or impose on the feeling of the countries in the Middle East and the Muslim countries towards the West in general. And it would aggravate that feeling of discrimination. You have also the Arab League, as you said, in a while, you said since a few minutes, have, I think it's the very, very comprehensive statement that we have seen until now from a regional or an international organization, where the Secretary General of the Arab League has expressed a deep concern, especially that 6 of the 7 countries that were banned, or their citizens are banned to have a visa, and even if they have a visa, they cannot enter the U.S. 6 of them are Arab countries, members of the Arab Leagues. He clearly showed that this is again the spirit of openness and globalization that have been the name of the game in the international relations since a few years.
And the reason these countries are in this state is due to U.S. foreign generally, like Syria and Iraq and Libya.
Well, of course, they have been playing a role in this by intervening, by combating the threat that they consider, and which we do understand. But that is not the proper reaction, of course. And as far, if you have been a party to the 1951 Convention on Refugees, there are obligations on the countries, on the states party to this convention, to accept refugees as long as they do not represent a threat to them. And also, this is the first time we see that the criteria of religion is used to sort of discriminate against refugees who are coming to one state or the other. And that would aggravate also the feeling that of the role of religion. We are saying that terrorism has no religion, has no country, has no state, and that it is a sort of a global threat. Now, if you link terrorism and the threat of terrorism to the security of the United States or any other country, and you link it to the fact that this or that person is Muslim, it will create more anger, more hard feelings, and it will give an excuse to more radicalization and extremism.
The White House did release a statement earlier, not through the president, but through the White House itself, the staff there, stating that the ban could extend to Egypt and Saudi Arabia. If this does happen, what does it mean for Egyptian-U.S. relations, and how will it impact the average Egyptian?
Well, I haven't heard personally that it might extend to the to Saudi Arabia or Egypt. But in this case, I think that will be a great mistake. Nevertheless, we have heard that King of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, had a telephone conversation with President Trump, and they have discussed their bilateral relations. They have discussed the regional and international issues of common concern, especially Iraq, Syria, security of the Gulf, and so on and so forth. Of course, we don't have a full readout of the telephone conversation, but this is what has been released, and I don't think that this issue of banning citizens of Saudi Arabia has been raised. As far as Egypt is concerned, I think all the signals that we have seen now until now, whether the meeting of President El-Sisi with, at that time, candidate Trump to the presidential on the sidelines of the General Assembly meetings, which I think went very well, and the exchange of messages and congratulations on the part of President Sisi to President Trump, and the following phone conversation where they discussed the bilateral relations, we don't have any signal saying that there is an issue, particularly as far as immigrants. We don't have illegal migration to the U.S. The migration of Egyptians to the U.S. is always according to the law, according to the rules. We don't, thanks God, we don't have a turmoil or any issue that would push or create an issue of refugees going to the U.S. On the other hand, until now we have excellent relations. On many occasions, both sides said that the Egyptian-American relations are of strategic importance, that they are institutionalized. We have trade. We are the 54th country at the level of the world to have trade and investments with the U.S. The U.S. is one of the major single partners in trade and investments, with trade of the volume of around $7 billion per year, and with direct foreign investment of the U.S. in Egypt of around $22 billion. And this is if we put aside as well the excellent military relations between the two countries. So I doubt very much that a government of the size and the importance of the U.S. would do a false move towards important partners in the Middle East, especially issues like combating terrorism, peace process, finding solution for what's happening in Syria and Iraq. They would make that mistake to alienate a country like Egypt, who is playing a very important role with the recognition of the whole world.
Like you were saying, that obviously historically Egypt and the U.S. have strong relations, and Egypt has always been a strategic ally for the U.S. in the Middle East. But in recent years, during the Obama administration, there have been like cold or strained relations between Egypt and the U.S., and we turn towards Russia in terms of regional or strategic relations. Do you think this will continue, our shift towards Russia, or will we shift back to the U.S.?
I wouldn't call it a shift. I would call it more of retrieving the balance that we always had with major powers in the world. Of course, the United States is definitely the first major power, but as we pass the year and along the time, we can see now that there are other powers that coming out on the international scene, and Egypt has always been seeking to have balanced and excellent relations with different powers in the world according to what would achieve the Egyptian interests, whether politically, whether economically, or in other fields, and even military as well. As you have seen, the French high-level delegation, army delegation, and defense delegation coming from France have been seeing our Minister of Defense during last week, and we are multiplying our military relations as well as our economic and political relations. So whoever would achieve or cooperate in achieving its aspirations, its hopes toward a better future, we will cooperate with them. Even if there is, we are looking forward to a better relation with the United States while keeping the rising relations with Russia, China, India, Africa, as we see our very clear presence in the African summit these days.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so Ambassador Wafa Basim, a former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This brings us to the end of this episode of Cairo Local Time, but stay tuned for more on Nile TV.